Good morning, guys. I'm doing this video a little bit early today because this afternoon, once I go hang out with my girlfriend, chances are I won't be making a video because we'll be eating or binge watching Game of Thrones. So I decided to make it early in the morning, early-ish in the morning. It's 10:40. That and I totally realized when I was reviewing my video yesterday, a number of things. One, that I talk too fast, so I should slow down. But one of the things that I realized yesterday that I did not give an update on the coronavirus, on how it kind of affected me and more or less the events that kind of unfolded throughout San Diego. So that's what I'll be doing today. But first, a couple notes. As this project is mostly for me and maybe for your entertainment, some of the things that I'm learning about myself. Apparently, I have an accent. I don't hear it. But when I listen back to my videos, I do have a slight Asian accent. It's not terrible. I guess when I talk really fast, it comes out more. I tend to sound more stereotypical Asian. Um, but when I talk slower, I guess it's not as much there. That accent is also kind of a bit of a twang. I don't know why that is. This is the first of me actually ever noticing it. Um, I did do recordings for a qualitative research class where I had to listen to myself talk. I didn't hear that accent. Um, Again, maybe because then I didn't talk as much, or at least for that recording, I didn't talk as much, and I read the questions nice and slow so that whoever I was questioning could understand the question very clearly, and then it also kind of gives them time to respond. But what's this twang? I don't know. Maybe because I listened to a lot of Kanye West, Yeezy. That's before he went crazy. I like his early stuff, by the way. The first three albums. I'll talk about that later. That's a good topic to bring up later on. Music. I can go into my music taste, which is just pretty profound, much like my readings. Oh, yesterday I went on about something, the idea of the Enlightenment and the principles of Enlightenment, and I could not name all four of them. Ironically, I did some surface research on it, and most websites sources quote only three principles of enlightenment, and I only got two out of the three. The fourth one, which I mentioned, was actually more of an appendage that my professor Abdel Noor, a name that you might not have heard clearly in my last video because I spoke too fast, added. So widely used as the principles of enlightenment, they're the first three. There are reason, science, progress, and the fourth one that was appended by my professor, Abdel Noor, was cosmopolitanism. Just to briefly go over the three, enlightenment occurred in the late 18th century. Reason was that element that I mentioned last time, that were people, they were being less mystified, and if there was something going on or a phenomenon in the world that they perceived, they would try to deduce what caused that phenomenon. So, for example, the theory of gravity, or why does the sun rise and fall, so to speak, which, as most of us believe, that the Earth is round and it rotates, and that gives the perception of the sun and moon rising and falling. That reason was also, if reason was kind of the core intuition, science was the vessel in which that came out. So the scientific method, again, going back, I don't know if the moon and the stars is a good scientific thing. That's not my strong point, astrology. But for example, gravity, I'm not going to attempt to, again, I'm more of a political philosopher, not like physical sciences, but if you drop something and they measure the speed, or they come up with a way to measure the speed, then you can kind of judge, so on and forth. Again, I'm not a huge science thing. Progress. Progress is something I take to heart. I guess you could call me an optimist, as far as a lot of things. Now, I'll joke in a pessimistic sense because I realize that a lot of people, or I perceive that a lot of people today, are pessimists. I will get into this a little bit as when it comes to the COVID-19 situation. Yeah, And then the last one is cosmopolitanism. And the reason why I've been more added this one, and the reason why I mention it, is because when it comes to ideas, there are prevailing ideas that become dominant, so to speak. So, just to take the idea of the rotating moon and sun and moon, I mean, what's opposed to that? A counter opposing theory of that would be the flat earthers, which respectfully I think is a bit loony. But hey, there is a handful of people, maybe not as many as we think, or maybe there are more than we think, that believe the earth is flat. Why they do that, it's beyond me. But if you think about it, if you really kind of break down the elements of flat earth, it kind of puts the idea that the sun and the moon that the rotation of the earth and the rising and the falling of the sun and moon come into conflict with a flat earth. Because if the earth is flat, that means gravity is pointing in one single direction. How does that work if the earth is spinning? I don't know. I've never run into a flat earther, so to speak, and I'd imagine that up front they kind of hide themselves because they realize that their idea is not the predominant idea. Anyways, how this ties back to cosmopolitanism is once an idea becomes the most dominant idea, that in essence becomes universal. So if an idea is so strong or theory is so strong that they can't be contested and it become overarching and other ideas kind of fall out, that's where that cosmopolitanism comes in. Oh, I guess I should define cosmopolitanism as like a universalist idea. So the earth is round is more or less a universalist idea, and the flat earth is a minority idea. And I mean, I guess it'd be interesting if anyone had any statistics or something to show like how many people are flat earthers versus the standard sphere and rotation theory. Anyways, that's that. But don't keep in mind this idea of progress, especially when I go down these kind of dates as COVID-19, and then I'll try to explain at the end of that. So, COVID-19 emerged in Wuhan, China, a very industrial and productive portion of the world, if you will, and that place actually, China. I mean, speculation aside as to how their government operated, kept it under wraps for a while, and they even locked down their entire country. Not entire country, but like entire cities, millions and millions of people on lockdown to try and contain the virus. And if that's the future that the United States must take to kind of contain the virus, because I think I even read an article that some places in China are finally opening back up because the virus is more or less controlled, and they can kind of let people out. But for them, it took them months, which is nuts actually. Like imagine the United States being locked up for a month. That's strange. For some people, it's only been 2 weeks and they're already going crazy. Anyways, put in the context that if China is on a certain trajectory of how they can control the virus, and the U.S. is doing more or less the same thing, but we're in a better position with the advantage of foresight, or not foresight, hindsight, and that's how we're learning the lessons from them, or at least we should be learning the lessons from them. American politics aside. So, events. I'm going to try and get to as much as possible. Thursday, March 5th, there was the first case in San Diego. Now, this kind of freaked me out just a little bit because the case was traced back to Chula Vista Mall, which is more or less where I worked, and I slightly freaked out, and I was like, oh, F. Of course, I think that's just the initial paranoia that people are kind of succumbing to. Side effects and statistics and probability-wise, it probably wasn't as bad, although I was deep down inside freaking out. That was Thursday, first case in San Diego. Monday, the 16th, so that week after, there was a soft order by Governor Newsom as a soft order to kind of stay indoors. Now, he was saying this, like, look, we're not going to use the police to force you inside, but let's use some common sense. Let's be considerate of others, especially the elderly, since those are most susceptible to the virus. Then we should stay indoors and not spread it. Wednesday, the 16th, the county finally bans large groups of more than 10. This is coming on the heels of here in San Diego, that where the sun never sets, so to speak. It's always sunny. It's always warm. how can you be indoors all day when you're living in paradise or America's finest city? I mean, I won't be afraid to say it. Here in San Diego, we are spoiled as far as weather. There's a reason why they call America's finest city. I'd say more or less for the weather. It's definitely not for the rent or cost of living because, well, everyone will willingly pay that extra buck to live in this weather. The next day, Thursday, March 19th, state orders non-essential work to stay at home. This was peculiar because that week it started on the 16th and ends on the 20th. That's where I still worked. I worked, a good solid how many hours? Almost 40 hours that week. I know it was kind of jarring to hear all these things say, "Hey, stay indoors," but yet here I am, work's still calling me in. My trajectory, my mentality at the time is, well, fuck, if I don't work, I don't make money, and so I should at least go to work now because I don't know how long this shit's gonna last. So I still went to work. But that Friday, the 20th, that's when the official orders were passed down, at least from my store corporate, to close all the stores. I think there was, it wasn't officially announced, but I think there was kind of a collaboration between state, county governments to the local businesses to be like, hey, you need to close your doors. That morning, I think I mentioned before, the boss came in and she said, well, at 9 o'clock that night, they still gave the okay for people to come in and work. But the next morning, that changed. Literally at 5 a.m., they said, you know what? Those people can't work. Part-timers, 2 hours, dip, have them swipe and leave. Full-timers, work the 2 hours, clean up the store, and that's it. And, okay, that's for that. I think that's more or less where I started my videos. My first recording was on the 20th. I did one on Saturday, yesterday. Yesterday, Sunday, March 22nd, the first patient dies in San Diego. At this point, yeah, that's yesterday. There are 159 cases in San Diego County. I heard there are some hot spots. Like there's a patient going around in some of the La Jolla schools. That there's a cluster of cases there, which is kind of nuts if you think about it. There's another small cluster in Coronado Base, like someone in the military got it, and that's there. The person that passed away was a high traveler. I think it was a he. Again, over 70 years old, traveled to Hawaii, came back, and his trek is kind of scary because he traveled to a lot of places, which kind of makes sense how we got if he's traveling a lot in that high exposure to the airport. I mean, I'm not gonna pay too much attention to that, but that's a little scary in that sense. And then, okay, from there, first death in San Diego, and then you have the city coming down. Let's see, how did I miss that? I'm missing this one more thing in the notes I should have written. Oh, between last night and this morning, there was an article saying that police will cite you $1,000 fine if you are in a group of more than 10. Parallel to that, there have been articles saying that beaches and parking lots were closed because people aren't staying indoors. Now, this is funny because I believe me, my girlfriend, are a little bit guilty of this. Yesterday, before we checked out of the hotel, we went for a nice walk around Seaport Village. And I kid you not, if it wasn't for the fact that you look at the stores are closed, people are out there just enjoying their lives. I mean, not like having a party, but they're walking around like nothing's going on. For me, my impression was that it felt like there are the same amount of people walking throughout Seaport, even with all the stores closed, versus when things are normal. And this is peculiar because on one hand, you have San Diego, again, America's finest city, greatest weather in the world, and you have people who've been inside all the time. And like, how can you stay inside when the weather is just so nice? Coincidentally, Monday we're back to rain. Hey, whatever. That's more reason to stay indoors. But while it's sunny and everything's warm, how can you confine yourself? That, and I guess a lot of people were taking advantage of the fact that walking their dogs seemed like a legitimate thing because that's what we saw a lot of dogs out there. Aside from the homeless, which is a different issue, people walking their dogs, or even at the convention center, if you guys are familiar, the stairs was nuts. I almost felt like that should have been a violation. I guess to some degree, this whole issues coming down from the state, from local government to authorities saying, don't be in groups of 10 or larger. When I saw a group that looked like a 10 or larger, I was kind of giving my nudge to the girl, like, we should turn around because I don't want to get in trouble. But Coming from last week where they said they weren't going to use police to enforce these things to now a potential $1,000 fine. That's something. Now, I guess you could say from here, it's my personal reaction to these things, and this is where the enlightenment and progress will, and being optimistic will come in. So when a lot of the responses when you see these articles that hey, the reason their parks are being closed, people are being fined, and they're saying, oh, it's those damn millennials, they just don't want to stay indoors. Um, it's easy to kind of rule things out like, oh, millennials are just dumb, or those people are just stupid, and quite frankly, I'm going to be quite honest. To rule out something that easy is just it's what's the word I'm looking for? I can use a lot of words. Moronic, idiotic, shallow, stupid. I don't like ruling someone out or people out as just stupid. Uh, Again, harkening back to my enlightenment type principles, people are very complex things. We have a certain amount of reason. Now, yes, some people have more developed reason than others. Does that make them stupid? Not exactly. Is intelligence judged on the ability of someone to do something right or correct? Well, again, right and correct is almost subjective or relative. And again, these are complex things, and I do understand that some people don't want to take the time to think about this. But how do I attack this? I don't rule. I don't rule these sayings out because people are just dumb. Granted that okay, on the proposition that people are not dumb and they're using their reason to their fullest, what would make a generation of people, which by the way I don't exactly agree with, but we'll run with it. What would make a generation of people or a person in general kind of defy this logic that staying indoors is for the greater good of society? Well, one, I'd almost argue that there's a bit of an individualist thing that hey, like, yes, we know our reason for within our reason, we realize that staying indoors is for the good of society. But there's that kind of internal intuition of the conditions of being in San Diego, of the condition that maybe they're young and they realize, well, I'm healthy, I have a strong immune system. People under 70 aren't exactly dying from it unless they're immunocompromised. They should stay indoors. Me, I'll be okay. And yes, there's that element of individualism, but as you can kind of look, I'm building a character that would make sense to. I am building a character that when you step into that shoes, you would understand why they would perceive all that thing. And it's not just a simple shot like, oh, they're younger and it's impossible. But there's more reasons why people don't stay inside. I can't come up with a theory that is over-encompassing to everyone, but if you take a moment to look at how someone might reason these things, it doesn't seem so far-fetched. So say, for example, the one theory I was going to kind of go back to is one of economic conflicts. So one, why don't people stay at home more? Well, because they need to work. Now, if you're low income like myself, and you're faced with the decision of staying indoors to not spread the virus or working because you need to provide everything for you. If the conditions are not met where you cannot maintain your way of life because you need to pay for it, guess what? You're put in the dichotomy of, do I do this for the greater good of society at the cost of myself? Or do I say, fuck society, I'm doing it for myself? That decision is not as easy as you would think. And I think more and more people are coming to that conclusion because a lot more people realize that, hey, if I don't work, or at least give the option to work at home, or to at least give the means to provide for my life, my way of living, society will go to hell. And there's like a bunch of political implications behind that, which I can get into. But more or less, I've come a long way. I've explained a lot, and I'd like to kind of wrap it all up. So, no, I don't believe people are stupid. Yes, there are. Yes, the orders are coming down harder as time goes on. Do I believe that people in general are just dumb and stupid because of it? No, I don't. my mind's going in like a couple different directions. I'm trying to pick which way to go. Um, and in that sense, damn computer. Uh, okay, so do I do this from the start again? Um, Coming from the dichotomy of that, when you step in their shoes, you realize why they might do it. Why would people not? Oh, now I know where I was going with this. Okay, so you step into the shoes of someone who doesn't want to stay indoors, and there's a sort of trait of the individual that goes in. Because I also do believe that majority of people are staying indoors. Stores are closed. You don't see all of San Diego out in the streets. You see a lot of people. Is it the majority San Diego? No, it's not. And in that sense, there are a few individuals who do believe they are larger than life. Maybe they are. Maybe they're not. That's for them to find out. But I think it's wrong to kind of rule out that people are just dumb. People are just stupid, and just a certain generation. Because actually, most of the people who are out there weren't from the millennial generation. A small shout out to someone who posted it, but they actually put a hard line breakdown of which generation is what. I'm sure there's blurred lines in between. Maybe I'll talk about that next time because that's kind of enlightening. For me personally, I hate generational biases with a passion because anyway, that's another thing. But back to the whole coronavirus. So if you look at the people who are staying out versus how the conditions in which they're meant to decisions versus the conditions they're faced with and decisions they're forced to make, and their kind of attitude towards life too, because put this in a grand scheme of politics, and I mean, this may be a stretch for some of you. I don't think it's a stretch, but there's a general sense of apathy where people kind of don't trust authorities in a sense. There's a presidential election coming up, and there's a reason why participation rates are as low as 50-60%. there's a reason to there's a reason for that, and one, because they feel like they feel like governments or authorities don't really respond to them, and I believe that's a legitimate excuse. Is that a reason to ignore coronavirus? No, but you can see why then. If the authorities say stay indoors for the greater good of society, they might take that with a grain of salt and more or less kind of side with their individualistic side and say, you know what, my reason says even if I do get it, I'll probably be okay. Fuck it, I'm gonna go outside. That's a lot to break down. I feel like I jumbled a little bit. If anyone has any questions about it, I guess I could try to explain it. I'm running long on time because obviously as I try to iron out these ideas, it's not as easy as it seems. But as you can see, that's a lot of work for what? And it is a lot of work. It is a lot of way of thinking. But I did this in what? Under 10 minutes, 5 minutes of explaining. But I guess it's easier for people to say, you know what? People are just dumb. People are just stupid. Personally, I hate that. I want to call them dumb, but then I don't want to fall into that trap either and say, look, you're dumb for thinking that people are dumb, because when you say people are dumb, you are people. Anyways, I don't want to rant on that. I will see you guys tomorrow. I don't know what to talk about. I'm thinking music, obviously, or maybe an idea will come when I review. That's all I got for you guys today. Happy Monday. Go to work. If you go to work, have fun. Try and be safe. All that good stuff. I don't know what else to say. Later.